The colony of New Dawn had once been full of life, a bright jewel on the edge of human space, where children laughed in open fields and families built homes under the twin suns. But now it was silent. When the patrol ship Horizon's light dropped out of faster-than-light travel, its crew expected to hear the usual chatter of a colony welcoming them. Instead, they met only empty static. Captain Rains leaned forward in his chair, staring at the dark planet below. The cities that had once glowed with lights were dark, the landing ports broken, the power grids silent. At first, the crew thought it was a system failure, maybe a power outage across the colony, but the sensors told another story. Buildings were reduced to ash, entire blocks leveled as if erased by fire. No life signs came from the surface. The silence was worse than any sound. It was the silence of death. Fear spread through the crew as they scanned deeper. No signals, no emergency beacons, no broadcasts. It was as if every human had simply vanished in one single night. Officer Lena whispered what no one wanted to say. "This colony is gone." Captain Rains ordered a descent. As the ship entered the broken skies of New Dawn, the devastation revealed itself in cruel detail. Entire cities looked burned from above, but not by natural fire, by weapons. Streets were melted, buildings shattered in perfect lines, as though erased with precision. Whatever had attacked here had not come for conquest. It had come to destroy. The crew's hands shook as they walked among the ruins. Ash crumbled under their boots. Children's toys lay abandoned on the ground. A half-buried photo of a family smiled up at them, a memory from a world that no longer lived. Officer Lena covered her mouth, fighting tears. "Where are the bodies?" she asked. There were no corpses, no wounded, no survivors. Only shadows burned into walls, black outlines of people caught in a final instant before light erased them. The patrol team found silence in every street, silence so heavy it pressed against their hearts. Rains ordered them back to the ship. But before leaving, the communications officer froze. "Captain, I'm getting something." The signal was faint, broken, almost impossible to hear. It was coming from deep underground. The crew raced toward the source, finding a collapsed bunker under layers of stone and steel. It looked like it had been buried by a deliberate strike. With effort, they pulled aside debris, forcing open a half-crushed door. Inside, hidden in the dark, was a small transmitter still blinking weakly. The sound it carried was a voice, a child's voice, crying. The message repeated again and again, broken by static. They came from the dark, they erased everyone. The crew froze. The child's voice was weak, terrified, and filled with despair. Someone had survived, if only for a short time, long enough to send this last message. The room was empty now, long abandoned. Whoever the child had been, they were gone. The recording was all that remained. Captain Rains clenched his fists. His voice was hard when he spoke. This was no accident. This was no natural disaster. This was an attack. His words spread cold fear through the ship. Humanity had met hostile life before, but nothing like this, nothing so cruel, so total. The enemy had not only destroyed a colony, they had erased its people, its history, its very existence. The crew carried the message back to the Human Alliance, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they had seen. Across the stars, news spread fast. New Dawn was gone, wiped out in silence. Families wept, leaders demanded answers, and fear filled every corner of human space. Who could do this? What kind of enemy would erase a colony without warning? Some believed it was an alien race long hidden in the dark. Others whispered it was something worse, something unknown that did not even see humans as life worth sparing. In every council chamber, commanders argued. Some spoke of caution, others of war. But all agreed on one truth: this was not the end. This was only the beginning. And somewhere out there, in the endless dark between the stars, the destroyers of New Dawn were watching. The Human Alliance was shaken after the fall of New Dawn. Every broadcast carried the grim images of the colony's ruins, and every citizen felt the fear that one day their own world could meet the same fate. The Council of Leaders met in silence, listening again and again to the faint child's voice recorded by Captain Rains and his crew. It was the only clue, the only thread of truth. They came from the dark. They erased everyone. The broken words echoed in the chamber, leaving commanders and politicians pale with dread. Some argued that it was too dangerous to investigate further, while others demanded vengeance immediately. But amid the chaos of debate, the Alliance's intelligence division uncovered something new. Hidden inside the static of the transmission was another layer of signal, so weak that even the most advanced computers struggled to pull it free. After long hours of analysis, the engineers revealed what they had found: coordinates, buried deep in the message. It pointed to a location on the far edge of the colony ruins, deep underground. The Alliance wasted no time. A special operations ship, the Iron Resolve, was dispatched with orders to investigate and bring back answers. On board, soldiers checked their weapons while scientists calibrated scanners. Everyone knew this mission was dangerous, but no one spoke it aloud. The shadow of New Dawn's destruction hung heavy over them. When the Iron Resolve reached the dead colony, they descended into silence once again. The planet felt cursed, its surface scarred and lifeless. As the team followed the coordinates, they reached the remains of an underground shelter, one that had been sealed tightly during the attack. With heavy effort, they forced open its doors. Inside, the air was stale and thick with dust, but in the corner, hidden under layers of debris, was a small life support pod. At first they thought it was empty, but then they saw movement inside. A child. Barely alive. His face was pale, his body weak, but his eyes flickered open when light touched him. The soldiers froze in shock. Against all odds, one survivor remained. The medics rushed forward, stabilizing the child and feeding him oxygen. His voice was hoarse when he spoke, but his words made every heart turn cold. They came from the sky, ships of shadows. They burned everything. Tears rolled down his cheeks as he tried to remember. He told them how strange ships had appeared without warning, black and sharp like knives against the stars. He described beams of light that cut buildings apart and weapons that melted the very ground. His parents had hidden him inside the pod moments before fire swept through their home. "I heard them," the boy whispered. "They did not speak like us. They only said one word before they killed. Erase." The room fell silent. The soldiers exchanged grim looks. This was not only destruction, it was deliberate extermination. The word alone carried more weight than any weapon. The child soon fell unconscious, his strength gone, but his testimony was enough to confirm humanity's worst fear. The attack on New Dawn was not a random act, not a misunderstanding, but a warning from an enemy that wished for nothing less than the complete erasure of mankind. The Iron Resolve carried the boy back to the core worlds, where his story spread like fire. Across the Alliance, people wept for the child's loss, but also burned with anger. Mothers clutched their children tighter. Fathers swore vengeance. Soldiers demanded deployment. Humanity had suffered tragedy before, but this was different. This was a wound carved into the heart of the species. In the High Council, the boy's words became the spark that ignited debate into action. "If we do nothing, more colonies will vanish," one admiral declared. "If we show weakness, they will not stop. They will erase us all." Yet some leaders still trembled at the thought of open war. The enemy's weapons were powerful, their ships advanced, their motives merciless. Could humanity stand against such a force? Fear battled fury in every chamber, but in the shadows, military leaders began preparations. New fleets were called together, old ships were reforged, weapons upgraded. Humanity was preparing for war, even if their leaders were not ready to admit it. And somewhere deep in space, beyond the reach of human eyes, alien ships drifted in silence, their weapons ready, their eyes fixed on the next target. For while the humans debated, the destroyers of New Dawn had already chosen their next colony. The signal had been recovered, the survivor had spoken, but the question still remained: how long until the stars burned again? The survivor's words spread through human space like fire carried by the wind, and soon no one could ignore the truth anymore. The human alliance could no longer argue or delay. The death of New Dawn and the testimony of the lone child made one thing clear: humanity was under attack. Fear twisted into anger, and anger demanded action. In secret war rooms and bright council chambers, leaders debated what the first response should be. Some argued for diplomacy, sending messages into the void, hoping the destroyers would answer. Others shouted that no message could reach creatures who only spoke with fire. The room filled with shouting until Admiral Keller slammed his hand on the table and growled, "Talking will not save our colonies. Only ships will." His words silenced the room. Within days, the Alliance formed a task force, a fleet of warships drawn from different sectors, fast, heavily armed, and ready to test human strength against this unknown enemy. The fleet's name was chosen carefully, meant to carry weight across the stars: Retribution Wing. Its mission was simple: go to the borders, hunt the alien ships, and prove that humanity would not be erased quietly. On the flagship Vanguard, Captain Rains, the same man who had seen the ruins of New Dawn, stood before his crew. His voice was steady, but his eyes carried the memory of ash and silence. "We will not forget what was done," he told them. "And we will not let it happen again. But know this: the enemy we face does not fear us yet. We must make them fear." The fleet launched into the dark, hundreds of engines lighting up the void. Families gathered on spaceport decks to watch them leave, whispering prayers and holding banners of hope. To the people, Retribution Wing was more than a fleet. It was a promise that humanity would not bow. But not everyone was so certain. In the quiet of the fleet's war rooms, doubts crept in. The alien weapons were beyond anything humanity had faced. The survivors' words haunted the soldiers: ships of shadow, beams that melted ground, voices that only spoke the word erase. Could even Retribution Wing stand against that? Days turned into weeks as the fleet patrolled the edge of space, searching for signs of the enemy. At first, nothing came. The void was silent, the stars cold, and some began to wonder if the aliens had already left, if New Dawn had only been a single act of terror. But then the sensors caught something. A distortion near a dead star, a ripple in the dark. The fleet moved cautiously, weapons armed, shields raised. Out of the shadows appeared ships unlike any the humans had built. Long and sharp, black as void, moving with silence as if they cut through space itself. The alien fleet had come, not with words, but with purpose. Captain Rains ordered hails sent in every human language, but no answer returned. Instead, the alien ships shifted into attack formation. The first strike came fast, beams of light slicing through the darkness and smashing into the human vanguard. A destroyer broke apart in flames, scattering wreckage into the void. The fleet roared back, missiles and railguns lighting the dark, but the alien hulls absorbed much of the fire, glowing red and then settling back into shadow. The humans fought with courage, but the aliens fought with precision, each shot cutting ships apart with frightening ease. Admiral Keller, watching from the command deck, growled into the comms, "We are not prey. Fire everything." The fleet responded with a storm of weapons, filling space with fire and steel. For a moment, it seemed to work. An alien cruiser shuddered and exploded, breaking into burning fragments. Cheers erupted across the fleet, hope sparking that the enemy could bleed after all. But the victory was short. For every alien ship destroyed, 3 more cut into the human formation. Explosions ripped across the sky as Retribution Wing began to fall apart. On the Vanguard, alarms screamed as the ship shook under impact. Captain Rains gripped the rail, refusing to fall, shouting orders, rallying his crew. "Hold the line," he cried. "If we break, humanity breaks with us." The humans fought on, stubborn and desperate, unwilling to yield even as losses grew. And in that chaos, one truth became clear to both sides: humanity would not die quietly. Even when outmatched, even when their ships burned, they fought with a fury that surprised the enemy. The battle raged until the alien fleet, though still stronger, began to pull back, retreating into the dark as suddenly as they had come. Silence returned to the stars, broken only by the cries of the wounded and the wreckage drifting among the dead. Retribution Wing had survived, but at a terrible cost. Half the fleet was gone, entire ships erased from existence, and the survivors bore scars they would never forget. Yet amid the despair, a fire burned brighter. Humanity had faced the shadow ships and lived. They had not won, but they had not been broken. And across the galaxy, in council chambers and crowded homes, the message spread like thunder. The enemy was real, their power was great, but humanity had drawn blood. This was no longer a question of survival alone. This was war, and it had only just begun. The news of the First Fleet's battle spread across human space like a storm. Some called it a defeat, others called it a warning, but to the people it was proof that the enemy could be fought, even if the cost was heavy. Families wept for the fallen, yet in their grief they found a new strength. Volunteers lined up in recruitment halls, scientists worked sleepless nights to improve weapons, and leaders who once hesitated now spoke with steel in their voices. Humanity had been wounded, but it was not broken. In the council chambers, Admiral Keller stood before the assembled leaders and said, "They believe we are weak, that we are prey. But we are not prey. We will show them that humanity does not yield." His words became a call to action. A second fleet was built, larger, faster, armed with new weapons forged from desperate innovation. The railguns were stronger, the missiles carried heavier warheads, and experimental shields were tested even if they were not yet perfect. Every ship carried the scars of hurried work, but every captain swore they were ready. They called the new fleet the Iron Flame, a name meant to strike fear and carry hope, for iron does not bend easily and flame cannot be erased. When the Iron Flame launched into space, billions watched from their worlds, whispering prayers into the stars. The fleet's orders were clear: track the enemy, force them into open battle, and make them understand that humanity would not be erased. The search led them to the edge of a dead system, where a giant star had collapsed into a cold husk. It was here, among the broken planets and drifting rocks, that the alien fleet was waiting. Black ships slid out of the shadows like predators rising from the deep, silent and sharp, their hulls glowing faint red as if hungry for war. The void became tense, every human hand gripping controls, every heartbeat echoing in the silence. On the flagship Resolute, Captain Anya Velasquez spoke to her crew with calm fire. "Remember New Dawn. Remember our dead. We fight not for victory alone but for survival, for vengeance, for every voice that was silenced. Today they will learn that humans do not fade into the dark." The fleets faced each other across the void, then the silence shattered. Alien weapons struck first, beams of searing light cutting across space. Human shields flared, shuddering under the power. Ships shook and alarms screamed, but this time the humans were ready. They returned fire in a storm of missiles and railgun rounds, filling the dark with explosions. Space lit up like a battlefield of suns as metal and fire clashed. Alien ships moved with deadly grace, cutting through formations with terrifying precision, but the Iron Flame fought with stubborn ferocity. For every ship that fell, two more pushed forward. Pilots screamed their defiance as they rammed missiles point-blank, gunners fired until their cannons overheated, engineers worked with burned hands to keep shields alive. In the chaos, the humans scored their first great victory. A squadron of frigates cornered an alien cruiser, hammering it with everything they had. The massive ship cracked and exploded, shards of burning metal scattering across the void. A cheer roared through human comms, a spark of hope amid the carnage. Yet the battle was far from over. Alien destroyers broke through the human flank, cutting ships apart with merciless fire. The Resolute itself shook as beams tore across its side, alarms wailing as decks collapsed and fire spread. Still, Captain Velasquez stood firm, her voice calm over the comms. "Hold the line. If we fall here, we fall everywhere." Her words steadied the fleet, and they tightened formation, fighting like wolves guarding their pack. Hours passed, and the void became a graveyard of burning wreckage. Human ships drifted in silence, their crews gone, but alien wrecks floated among them. For the first time, the enemy was bleeding heavily, their perfect formations broken, their advance slowed. Yet the price was terrible. Nearly a third of the Iron Flame lay destroyed, thousands dead, more missing. But still the humans did not retreat. The aliens, perhaps surprised by the stubborn resistance, began to pull back, slipping into the shadows from which they had come. The humans held the field, battered but unbroken. In the silence that followed, the survivors looked out at the wreckage and realized what had happened. They had not won a clear victory, but neither had they lost. They had faced the full power of the enemy and endured. Across the Alliance, the news spread like a beacon in the dark. Humanity could stand, humanity could fight, humanity could hurt the enemy. Yet in the alien councils, far away in their hidden worlds, voices spoke in cold tones. The humans were not prey, not so easy to erase. They were dangerous, defiant, and growing stronger with each battle. And so, even as humanity celebrated its survival, the enemy began preparing something far worse, a weapon designed to crush the rising fire before it spread too far. The Battle of the Dead system had shaken both sides. For humanity it was proof that they could fight, endure, and bleed their enemy. But for the aliens it was a sign that humans were not so easily erased. In the weeks that followed, the human alliance threw every resource into survival. Shipyards that once built trade vessels now forged warships, scientists who had studied stars now designed weapons, and even distant colonies sent supplies to strengthen the fleet. Everywhere across human space, the cry was the same: never again. In the laboratories of Mars, engineers unveiled a new weapon born of desperation and brilliance, a mass driver cannon so powerful it could tear holes in armored hulls the size of cities. On Luna, scientists completed a new shield lattice that could bend and scatter the alien beams, not perfectly but enough to give ships a chance to strike back. These inventions were rushed into the fleet, untested, dangerous, but humanity no longer had the luxury of caution. The survivors of New Dawn's destruction, and the soldiers who had faced the Shadow Fleet, carried the fire of vengeance in their hearts, and that fire burned hotter with every passing day. At the same time, the people themselves rose. Civilians volunteered to serve as supply pilots, carrying weapons and food across the stars, often unarmed and at risk of sudden attack. Factories worked without rest, families sent sons and daughters into the fleet, and everywhere there was talk not of surrender but of standing until the end. For the first time in human history, scattered worlds and rival governments spoke with one voice. Humanity was united by pain and purpose. It was in this atmosphere that Admiral Keller summoned his commanders and presented the new strategy. No longer would humanity wait for the enemy to strike. No longer would they fight only to survive. From now on, they would take the war to the enemy. His voice was sharp as iron when he spoke. We will not simply endure. We will make them afraid. We will make them understand that humanity cannot be erased. The first test came swiftly. Alien ships appeared near a mining colony on the rim, expecting another easy slaughter. Instead, they met a fleet armed with mass drivers and new shields. The battle was brutal, but when the first human cannon fired, it sent a slug of metal the size of a building straight through the alien cruiser, splitting it in half. The cheers of the human crews shook the comms as they pressed the attack. For the first time, the aliens were forced to retreat in open defeat. The colony was scarred but alive, and the people called it a miracle. Across the stars, hope spread like a rising sun. If one colony could be saved, more could follow. The turning point had come. Yet victories did not come without loss. Ships still burned, soldiers still died, and the enemy grew more ruthless with every encounter. They unleashed new weapons, strange pulses that fried systems, invisible mines that floated in space like traps, but humanity adapted quickly, learning with each battle. Every fallen ship was studied, every survivor's story became data, and slowly, step by step, the balance began to shift. Captains who had once fought with fear now fought with fury. Commanders who once hesitated now ordered bold strikes. The aliens who once hunted across human space now found themselves hunted in return. It was during these days that a chant spread across the fleets and colonies, a battle cry that carried from soldiers to civilians alike: "For New Dawn." The words echoed in the hearts of every human, a reminder of the colony erased and the reason they fought. Even children in schools whispered the phrase with clenched fists, their voices small but fierce. Humanity had become a flame that would not be put out, and with every strike, that flame grew brighter. But in the hidden depths of alien space, where their true empire stretched unseen, leaders of the Shadow Fleet gathered in cold silence. They had underestimated the humans, seen them as weak prey, but now they knew the truth. These creatures were dangerous, unpredictable, and relentless. They adapted too fast, fought too hard, and refused to die quietly. The aliens decided humanity could no longer be fought with raids and skirmishes. If they wished to erase the species, they would need to bring forth their greatest weapon, a force so devastating that no shield, no cannon, no courage could withstand it. And so, as humanity celebrated its victories and felt the fire of hope rising, a darker storm was already forming beyond the edge of sight, waiting for the moment to strike and test whether this new unity, this turning point, would be enough to save mankind from extinction. The war that had once been a shadow now burned openly across the stars. Humanity no longer fought only to defend its colonies, but carried the fire of vengeance into enemy territory. The fleets that once trembled in fear now moved with purpose, hunting alien strongholds, striking supply lines, and destroying bases hidden in the void. Every battle cry carried the same words, "For new dawn," and with each victory the chant grew louder, a thunder that shook across human space. The Iron Flame, rebuilt and reforged with new weapons, led the charge. Its ships carried mass drivers that shattered enemy armor, missiles that burned hotter than suns, and shields that could twist alien beams long enough for counterattacks to land. The first great offensive was launched against an enemy outpost near a pulsar, a place where alien ships had hidden for years, striking at human trade routes. The human fleet arrived like a storm, engines blazing, weapons primed. At first the aliens met them with arrogance, confident that their firepower would scatter the humans again, but they were wrong. The mass drivers opened fire, tearing through the outpost's defenses, while human fighters darted between alien beams like angry hornets, striking at weak points. The battle was fierce, ships burning, wreckage spinning into the pulsar's deadly light, but when the dust cleared the outpost was gone, erased by humanity's wrath. Cheers erupted across the fleet, voices raw with triumph. For the first time since the war began, humans had not only defended but conquered. Word of the victory raced through colonies like lightning. Crowds gathered in the streets, chanting the fleet's name, waving banners, and singing songs of defiance. Children who once hid in fear now played pretending to be pilots and soldiers, and parents who once wept now dared to dream of survival. Yet even as hope grew, the cost of war was heavy. Thousands died in every battle, their ships left as burning graves drifting in space. Captains wrote farewell letters before every fight, knowing many would never return. Still, no one turned back. Humanity's spirit had hardened into steel. Each loss only made the survivors fight harder, and each victory fed the fire of vengeance. More offensives followed. Human fleets struck at alien shipyards, raided convoys, and destroyed hidden weapon caches. Colonies once thought doomed were liberated, survivors rescued from bunkers where they had hidden for months. Some of those survivors spoke of horrors. The aliens had not only destroyed but experimented, seeking to understand humans as if they were insects. Their cruelty only fueled humanity's rage. Across the void, alien commanders began to realize the danger. These humans, once scattered and weak, had become relentless predators. Their ships were not as advanced, but their will to fight, their ability to adapt, and their refusal to surrender made them deadly. What was worse, humans carried something the aliens did not: hope, a fire that spread like a virus, burning brighter with every victory. Battles grew larger, more desperate, the void itself lit by fire and wreckage. In one legendary clash near the gas giant Helios, the humans launched a trap that destroyed an entire alien fleet. Using decoys and hidden mines, they lured the enemy into the planet's gravity well and hammered them from all sides until nothing but wreckage remained. The victory was costly, but it showed the galaxy that humanity was not only surviving, they were winning. Still, victory carried a shadow. In the ruins of one alien base, human soldiers discovered strange machines, weapons of a scale unlike anything they had seen before. Scientists who studied the wreckage grew pale. The technology was incomplete, as if the aliens were preparing something greater, something far more dangerous. When news of this reached the council, silence filled the room. Admiral Keller spoke only one sentence: "They are building something that can end us." The fleets continued their campaign, but unease grew in the hearts of commanders. Every battle won was a step closer to whatever weapon the aliens were preparing, and though humanity struck hard, they knew time was not on their side. Yet the people refused despair. They gathered on their worlds, shouting into the skies, promising their fallen that they would not stop until the enemy was broken. Across the stars, human fire spread, burning brighter, fiercer, and unstoppable. The aliens had tried to erase a colony, but instead they had forged a storm. Humanity had become a force that shook the galaxy, and though shadows gathered on the horizon, one truth was clear: the fire would not go out, not until the last star burned or the enemy was ash. The war had reached its breaking point. Humanity's fire had spread across the galaxy, tearing down outposts, fleets, and strongholds, but now the truth of the enemy's plan was revealed. From captured data and broken machines, scientists learned of a weapon so vast that it defied belief, a superstructure hidden in the heart of alien space, built to unleash destruction on a scale never seen before. The aliens called it the Eraser, a weapon designed to wipe out entire worlds in a single strike. If completed, it would end humanity in one blow. The news sent shockwaves across the Alliance, fear whispering in every corner, but alongside fear burned a fierce resolve. Humanity had come too far, lost too much, to stop now. The Council gave its order with trembling voices but unshaken hearts: the enemy's weapon must be destroyed at all costs. The largest fleet in human history was assembled, drawn from every surviving world, every shipyard, every colony that still had strength to give. Old warships refitted with new weapons sailed beside brand new carriers, and civilians volunteered as support crews, ready to die if it meant humanity would live. It was no longer just a fleet, it was an armada, a tide of steel and fire. As they prepared to launch, the people of Earth, Mars, Luna, and countless colonies gathered to watch, chanting the words that had carried them through the darkest days: "For New Dawn." The chant thundered across the stars, filling every ship with purpose. The Armada entered alien space like a storm. Resistance came quickly, black ships rising in swarms, but the humans did not break. Battles raged across asteroid fields and shattered moons, each clash a sacrifice, each victory paid for in blood. Step by step, the Armada carved a path toward the heart of the alien empire, where the Eraser waited. Finally, after weeks of relentless war, the humans arrived at the enemy's core world. There it stood, the weapon itself, massive and terrible, a structure larger than any city, surrounded by fleets so vast they blotted out the stars. The sight filled the human crews with both dread and fury. Captain Rains, now scarred by countless battles, stood on the bridge of the Vanguard and spoke to his fleet. "This is it. The moment all our dead have waited for. Today we finish what they started. Today we shake the stars." His words echoed across the comms, and the Armada surged forward. The battle that followed was like nothing seen before. Space itself seemed to burn as thousands of ships clashed, beams of light and streams of missiles filling the void. Human ships fell in waves, but they took alien cruisers with them, tearing open holes in the defensive ring. The aliens fought with desperation, their perfect order breaking under the fury of humanity's assault. For every ship lost, 10 more humans roared into the fight, refusing to retreat. The Eraser began to charge, its core glowing with terrifying light, a power that could consume a world. Alarms screamed across the fleet as sensors detected the growing energy. If the weapon fired, Earth itself would be the target. There was no more time. Admiral Keller gave the final order: all ships, focus fire on the weapon. Break through, or die. The fleet responded with everything they had: mass drivers pounding, missiles streaking, fighters diving straight into enemy lines. Ships rammed alien vessels head-on, sacrificing themselves to open paths. One by one, shields collapsed, armor shattered, but the Armada pressed on. The Vanguard led the charge, its guns blazing until they overheated, tearing a burning wound in the Eraser's defenses. Finally, a squadron of frigates carried the last hope. With engines burning, they dove straight into the weapons core, detonating their warheads in a blinding flash. The explosion tore through the Eraser, ripping it apart from within. The massive structure shuddered, split, and then exploded in a burst so bright it lit the entire system. The shockwave shook fleets, shattered ships, and sent silence rolling across the void. The weapon was gone. The alien fleet, broken and leaderless, faltered. Some fought on, but many began to retreat, fleeing into the dark. Humanity had done the impossible. They had faced extinction and answered with fire so fierce it destroyed the enemy's greatest power. Across the fleet, exhausted survivors cheered through tears, voices raw with victory. "For new dawn!" they cried, their words echoing like thunder through the wreckage. When the armada finally returned home, battered but triumphant, billions waited to greet them. There was mourning for the fallen, but also pride that humanity had stood together and refused to be erased. The story of New Dawn would never be forgotten, and neither would the vengeance that followed. Humanity had shown the galaxy that it would not break, that its fire could shake the stars. And though scars remained, one truth shone brighter than ever: when threatened with extinction, humanity did not vanish into the dark. Humanity fought, and in fighting, it became unstoppable.